little more of the history of the MS&LR as we prepare to head south. In 1850, James Allport joined the MS&LR as manager. As part of his duties, he felt it was necessary to improve relations with the Midland and the LNWR. This led to what became known as the Euston Square Confederacy, and as soon as 1851, through carriages were introduced between Sheffield and London. In 1851, and this is an answer to a quiz question, a contract was signed between Messrs Smith & Sons of London to sell books on principal stations. Still at this time, during the 1850s, freight was the main source of income for the company, causing a number of short lines to be built. In 1854, Allport left and Edward Watkin joined as manager. Watkin had been working for the LNWR, and he was able to reveal his old employer and the GNR had been negotiating over territorial divisions. This revelation caused suspicion between the MS&LR and the LNWR, and it grew until all ties were cut, and a price war broke out that began to worry other railway companies. A meeting was eventually set up by 19 different companies at the Railway Clearing House, where most of the disagreements were overcome. A further meeting between the GNR, MS&LR and the LNWR settled a row over fares and the handling of traffic. Another result of this meeting was the GNR and the MS&LR grew closer, with still eyeing the LNWR with suspicion. Work on the double track that makes the GCR unique started in 1991, and it became operational in 1997. To give you an idea of the cost, when work started, a 60-foot rail cost £150, but as the years passed, this rose to £200. Sleepers were £7.50, fish plates between £8 and £10 a pair, this included both. While drinking a cup of tea in the refreshment room at Loughborough, I was reading a book I bought there called Double Track. From it I learned that while the track was being laid, each rail had to be matched to the one it joined, for a difference in height of little more than 1 millimetre would give a noticeable bump. It would also damage the rail end. In the 1860s, the MS&LR continued its expansion, sometimes leasing railways jointly with the LNWR, but suspicion remained between the two companies as the railway network grew. The distance between Loughborough and our first stop, Cornwall Woodhouse, is only about 2¼ miles, so we should soon be there. Watkins had a grand idea for the MS&LR and other companies he was involved with. One was he wanted to build a new railway line south to London, then on again to the Channel, where he wanted to build a Channel tunnel. Although, as we all know now, he never succeeded in building the tunnel, he was part of one of the earliest attempts to do so.
Thank you.
The diesel ahead is a Type 1, number D8098. It was built in 1961 by Robert Stephenson and Hawthorns, who were part of the English Electric Group. It spent most of its working life in Glasgow, moving later to Sheffield, where it spent some time in store. It finally finished its working life in the northeast and was withdrawn in 1991. It has a maximum speed of 75 miles an hour. As the MS&LR entered into the latter decades of the 19th century, the ever-growing demand for coal meant more and more business for their services, to a point where the density of traffic meant improvements to the infrastructure had to be quickly made. At this time too, there was also the question of takeovers and mergers, but they all fell through. Back on board again for the next step of our journey. That's a 3-mile stretch down to Rothley. I've got a day runabout ticket, which means I can get off and on trains as I feel like it. Back to the 19th century, where we find the MS&LR faced considerable opposition as it strived to expand south towards London, but Watkin was determined to achieve this part of his original plan. The 92-mile extension finally obtained parliamentary approval in 1893 for building work to begin in 1895. It was ready to open for coal traffic in 1898 and in 1899. During this time, it was felt a new name was required for the company, and in 1897 the MS&LR became the Great Central Railway. It was also during this period of expansion that this stretch of the line, now restored, was originally laid. Once passenger services began in March 1899, passengers found them fast and comfortable. Buffets too were introduced to further enhance the service offered. For advertising purposes, GCR trains were given names worthy of the luxury they offered, such as the Master Cutler or the South Yorkshireman. In 1903, the Great Central offered 5 daytime through trains from Loughborough to London, plus 5 more by changing at Leicester. This sort of service was available to many other destinations, including Southampton, Bradford, York, Scarborough, Blackpool and Fleetwood. Later, corridor trains were introduced from Barry in South Wales to Newcastle via Cardiff, Gloucester, Cheltenham, Banbury, Leicester, Nottingham, Sheffield, York and Darlington, on to Hull. The GCR London extension was the last domestic main line to be built in this country until Section 1 of the Channel Tunnel rail link that was opened in 2003. It had cost a phenomenal 11.5 million, 5.5 million above the estimated cost. Consequently, the company never paid a normal dividend again. The GCR became known for its excellent locomotives and luxurious trains. It had a slogan, rapid travel in luxury, that it certainly did its utmost to live up to. The GCR was only to remain independent for 25 years, becoming part of the London and North Eastern Railway during the company grouping of 1923. 25 years later, it became part of British Railways Eastern Region when the railways were nationalised. When I visit a heritage line, I often wonder how they got started. Then I remembered some time ago I read an article in Steam Railway about how the GCR got underway. It took me a while to find, as it was in an old 1981 edition. It tells of a cold night in February 1969 when a group of 16 railway enthusiasts got together in the refreshment room at Leicester Central Station to discuss the possibility of saving part of the Great Central Railway, which was due to close in less than 3 months. The initial plan was to save 23 miles of the old GCR from Leicester to Nottingham. Later, this was reduced to an 8-mile stretch from Binstall to Loughborough. The kitty to start the mainline preservation group was got underway by each of those present contributing 2 and 6, or 12.5 pence in today's money. Today, I think all railway enthusiasts who visit here should offer a great big thank you to all those present in that small group who sowed the seeds to make the GCR what it is today. We're underway again, heading south towards Leicester on the last stretch of our journey. And once more, we're going past the Great Western Railway Manor class. Near the beginning of this trip, we saw a board listing the locomotives in service today, and here it is again. So just to make sure we've seen them all, we'll have another quick look at each of them in turn. Starting with 78019, the standard. Next, 7821, the Manor again. Four 5305, the Black Fire. Here's 63601, the 04.
To show you something Your assignment was asked to point out to you that you will eventually want you back to Central Station, and if you go by any train, you'll not 3:45 will get you to left north.
Now for the diesels. Here's D123. (8098). And lastly, the DMU. Up ahead now is Leicester North Station, where we began our visit to the GCR, and I've enjoyed it very much, although the sun did let us down a bit. To finish, I'd like to show you once more the Black 5 heading the mail train as it steams through Cornham Woodhouse Station at speed. Beat that. Goodbye.